and 8 points ahead of Leipzig, who we all think might have the potential to do something, but just every single year kind of seemed to fall apart. This game against Hoffenheim, I mean, we talked about Hoffenheim and, the takeover, Sturm Graz's takeover of the club with Andreas Schicker, the managing director who came in October, now Christian Ilzer coming in as the new head coach. They face RB Leipzig in the first game, not a game where we thought they would pick something up necessarily. And for a long time, it looked like they wouldn't. Leipzig took the lead 3 times in this game and still lost 4-3. It was an absolutely bonkers match. It was probably the match of the weekend. A ton of fun to watch. Ilzer, I thought, instant impact. He brought in Bruno Larsen in the second half, who set up Losik for the equalizer and then scored the winner himself, right? Really good game management. Tim Bishop, who is, funny enough, literally after the game, he's the central midfielder who I thought was incredible. His free kick to make it 2 is outstanding, really well taken by a 19-year-old talent. Game ends and he's literally being linked with a move to Leipzig like right away. But yeah, this was such a fantastic game, and it shows, what a coaching change can do. And I think there is more potential in this Hoffenheim team than people think. Let's see if Ilse can conserve that. But, it's also just such a frustrating game for Leipzig because, again, at times they show their talent. At times whether it's Nusa, whether it's Openda, there's players in this team that can really make a huge difference. But I kind of felt like for both these teams, it was kind of the season in a nutshell, right? Leipzig are so very good at times, but they just throw away games for fun at the moment, whether it's in the Bundesliga or in the Champions League, where they literally threaten to crash out. This is just, so many different storylines in this game, so it was a ton of fun to watch.
Yeah, it certainly seemed it. I was really impressed with Losik at Hoffenheim. I just wanted to jump straight into that. I thought his first goal was outstanding. I loved the little jink to get by like a kind of stream of defenders. He's such an interesting player for me because, he obviously moved to Leverkusen and was really highly rated there. It just didn't work out for one reason or another. And he moved to Hoffenheim and I thought, this is a perfect place for him to kind of settle in, kind of get back to basics. And he'll have the time to develop into like a really good Bundesliga player. I didn't think it would happen overnight with a new head coach because it hasn't really been working for him so far this season. He's been really in and out of the team, and then he's straight into the starting lineup here, and he scores a great goal in the first half, an equaliser like straight after, a minute after the first goal, and then he scores again in the second half, and yeah, I think he kind of exemplified this kind of almost belief that was just kind of racing through the veins of these Hoffenheim players. It's obviously, a cliche to see like a new manager bounce, but in these instances, you can kind of see why that is almost like a truism in the sense that you could see all of these players were kind of playing to impress the head coach to say, no, I should be starting in this new team. I'm the guy you should build this attack around. I'm the guy you should be building this midfield around. I'm the match winner. I'm the guy who can go toe-to-toe with these Leipzig players. I completely agree. I thought Bischoff did that. I thought Klosek did that. And you're right, add Stack to that. There's so many young players in that team who suddenly you have like the kind of building blocks for a team, whereas under Matarazzo and for God knows how many seasons now, it's just kind of felt like a team that have just been waiting around every week and say, if we can kind of keep close this team, maybe Andre Kramaric will score a wonder goal and we'll get something from it. And, I didn't even think Kramaric was particularly good in this game, which is maybe another kind of quite telling sign of the way things are changing. So yeah, it's interesting. Hoffenheim almost immediately turned things around. I'm also really impressed with the kind of tactics and stuff that was on display too. They seem like a far more focused team. People know what they're doing, far more confident, far more attacking. Under Matarazzo, and we talked about this, was it last week, week before when he got sacked, but they just kind of felt like they were going through the motions. It didn't feel like he was building towards anything, which we now understand why, because he probably knew he was never going to be in the job for that long, so he was almost like a caretaker manager. But under Ilzer, it feels like this team are just all of a sudden bounce back and they're immediately this kind of mid-table club who are happy to take on the likes of Leipzig. Having said that, Leipzig maybe not the big scalp that they once were a few weeks ago.
No, they're not. I mean, first of all, it's so very funny that Ilzer comes in, right? And he comes in after doing so very well in Austria, where with Sturm Graz he dismantled Red Bull Salzburg's dominance. And then his first opponent in the Bundesliga is Red Bull Salzburg's sister club, and he beats them 4-3. I mean, the story writes itself, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, you look at Marco Rose's reaction after the game, and I think I'm personally a big fan of Marco Rose. I think he's one of the most empathetic coaches in the Bundesliga. I know the players love him, but I've come to the point now where I wonder if the players loving him is actually maybe not a good thing. I actually think, I've spent some time thinking about it this week. I think that Marco Rose is perfect for RB Leipzig, but I almost wonder if he would be better in a different role, because he is from there. He is from Leipzig. He's very much identifies with the city. He previously worked in the Red Bull system, but at times I kind of feel like he's very much of a father teaching figure. Jürgen Klopp light in some ways, and I do wonder if this team needs someone that can kick their ass. Like a old school kind of tough coach who can bring in a bit more structure where the players, someone who maybe doesn't hug the players too much or doesn't feel too empathetic. Empathy is important. I'm trying to find the right words here, but it just feels like maybe this club needs a little bit more tough love, because
discipline.
It is, maybe it's discipline. I do think Marco Rose shows discipline, but maybe it has been too long of it. And I do think that they should try to keep Marco Rose, but maybe in a different role, maybe as a technical director, or something like that. It kind of feels like that's almost more of his calling. I kind of feel like they really need, that was always something that was really strong about Nagelsmann. Nagelsmann has this ability to be really empathetic, but he's also very disciplined and really mean at times. I feel like the squad needs someone who's maybe a little mean at times and just points out the flaws that exist and there's so many. Every single one of these players in this Leipzig squad is highly talented. That's why they got picked to sign and get signed by Leipzig, right? From a talent level, this squad is second to none in the Bundesliga. Lacks all the other important things that you need to win. So, that's kind of what I feel like is a little bit missing here. It needs someone who is maybe a little bit mean at times.
Yeah, they have to change something. They're also just not creating enough chances and not scoring enough goals. I know that seems silly to say after a game where they scored 3 goals in, but the interesting thing is if you actually look at their XG over the course of the match, and if you kind of look at their XG timeline, which I know probably sounds like gobbledygook to a lot of people who don't really follow kind of statistics, but it's basically a timeline of the amount of accumulated chances each team created over the course of the match. And throughout the entire match, Hoffenheim's XG was higher than RB Leipzig's. At no point did RB Leipzig have any control of this game. Were they creating more chances than Hoffenheim? Should they have had more goals than Hoffenheim, even though they obviously took the lead a few times? And that's kind of been the problem with Leipzig for a number of weeks now. This is the third, I think, consecutive game in which they've been behind their opponents in terms of XG created. There's obviously a problem in this game, 4-3, where Hoffenheim's XG was 2.6 to Leipzig's 1.7. Last week against Gladbach, their XG was just 0.85 at home to Gladbach. Gladbach's was 1.3. Then, of course, the 2 undefeated Dortmund, they got absolutely spanked, to be perfectly honest with you. Dortmund's was 3.3 and theirs was 0.24. And quite damningly, if you look at which players have the highest non-penalty XG in Leipzig's team this season, so basically who's created the most chances excluding penalties, it's Openda with 4.3, which is okay. Sesko with 2.78. Then it's Willy Orban with 2.5. So their central defender is their third best goal threat this season, and he's only slightly behind Benjamin Sesko, who's meant to be this kind of star striker. Obviously, Xavi Simons is out injured. Christoph Baumgartner's not creating enough. Antonio Nusa's kind of been a very hot and cold player, I find. He was obviously quite good in this game where he got a goal and 2 assists, but before that, I'd only had 1 goal and 2 assists over the course of, 10 games for Leipzig. So, and he's obviously played, he has been given plenty of game time, to be perfectly honest with you. So he's kind of flattered to deceive for the most part. And then you kind of look through that squad, and yeah, they do have this. I think this is the crucial problem with Leipzig. We've seen it from the start. They do have a lot of defenders, they have a lot of fullbacks, they have a lot of central midfielders, but they don't actually have a lot of playmakers. They don't have a lot of actual forward players. And I think it's quite telling that, you strip away that team from the likes of Openda and Sesko and maybe Nusa, and, you're very kind of quickly kind of falling back on older players like Andre Silva or Poulsen, or you're maybe kind of throwing someone like Ouedraogo in there and kind of hoping that he can suddenly do something. And I think that's ultimately where the problem are. I think Leipzig will be looking to the January window and thinking we need to get a couple of inside forwards in, a couple of wingers in, maybe a couple of attacking midfielders, and hope that they can kind of get by until Xavi Simons gets back to full fitness, because they don't look anywhere like top 4 team as things are right now.
No, they just don't have any structure. That is, I think, the biggest takeaway. They don't have the structure to create chances. Attacking wise, it's hope for the best and individual performances, and defensively, it's a complete and utter mess. Without that, you're not going to have success. It's as simple as that. It's not reinventing the wheel or anything. It's just as simple as this team just lacks complete structure, and it's at times just hoping for talent to shine, which it does. This game was a great example of that. They scored 3 times and still lost, and that I think exposes everything that's wrong with this team. So yeah. It's another year, I think, in which Leipzig will sort of look at the end of the season where they're going to finish with around 68 points or so and say, oh, yeah, Bayern had 75 points. We could have probably done that, And so you just wonder what it ultimately will be for them to take that next step and become a title challenger, rather than seeing like maybe the likes of Stuttgart and Leverkusen, jumping ahead of Bayern Munich in the season where Bayern struggle.